As you are watching on your screen, you'll be seeing there the plane in the skies above Vatekloof Air Force Base. That is the flight that we believe is carrying the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who joins a host of other leaders, global leaders who've actually arrived. There's a lot of diplomatic, the reception that will be given to the Indian Prime Minister, a lot of protocol. Protocol is the word that I'm looking for. From who receives the Prime Minister, at what level of representation of the South African government is that reception. So you'll be seeing all of that playing itself out. The authorities, the various cabinet ministers in the country, in the government of national unity, certainly playing their role in that protocol, because of course naturally the president can't be there to meet every leader who is at head of state level. So that's one of the arrivals that we have seen in Mfundo. We're watching all of this from the Nasrec Expo Center, which will be the focus for this summit over the coming days. But certainly this is one of the many arrivals that we have seen in the last few hours in Mfundo.
Tulasizwe, one of many arrivals, but most certainly when we speak of the relationship between India and South Africa, they share a very deep and multifaceted relationship, rooted, of course, in the shared history of fighting apartheid and extending to that robust economic ties, strategic partnerships and cultural exchanges. So most certainly an ally indeed of South Africa. And of course, when we speak of some of those strategic partnerships, they're also part of the BRICS nations. So most certainly when we speak of Prime Minister Modi, we speak of a true friend of South Africa. Tulasizwe.
So part of what was said when Prime Minister Modi left New Delhi yesterday was that there'll be an opportunity for him to engage, one, with President Cyril Ramaphosa, but two, to engage with leaders of the grouping known as IBSA. Because Mfundo, we focus so much on BRICS nowadays, we forget that, there's also IBSA. This is India, Brazil, South Africa. So in that BRICS, you take away China and Russia, and of course, in the expanded BRICS, the other countries that have now joined. So Prime Minister Modi is hoping that there will be that opportunity. In fact, he says he will get that opportunity to engage with leaders of IBSA, India, Brazil, South Africa, as well as engage with President Cyril Ramaphosa. But also, Mfundo, just to mention, thematically, we've been saying, the fourth presidency of the G20 coming from the Global South, and it was in 2023 that India was president of the G20 and hosted the Leaders Summit. And the significance of the African Union becoming a member of the G20 during that year has not been lost to the Indian Premier.
Indeed, Tulasizwe, and many have emphasized, among them being Trevor Manuel, who was the chair of the Africa expert panel. He did indicate that given that South Africa is the last of the Global South to host the G20 summit, most certainly this being of a benefit to South Africa, that when it comes to the priorities, they have had the opportunity to now almost crystallize the issues, that if the developmental agenda was started by the very first of the Global South, that indeed when South Africa comes and becomes the fourth consecutive member state to host, at least as part of the Global South, and most of their issues will most certainly be placed firmly on the agenda, given that they've had that last bite to crystallize the issues.
Yeah, and in terms of that hosting of the G20 in 2023, Mfundo, the Indian presidency, so South Africa has solidarity, equality, sustainability. India had one earth, one family, one future. In many ways, if you analyze it, Mfundo, it actually is thematic, isn't it? It talks to solidarity. If we are one earth, one family, one future, it means our fate is intertwined. You cannot separate the issues that affect one region, as far as climate, for example, is concerned, as far as issues to do with debt are concerned, and hope that the global economy will thrive if some of these countries are left behind. I picked up that theme quite strongly across the 4 presidencies that were coming from the Global South. So we're looking at that jet there that has now landed at the Air Force Base Waterkloof. And any minute now, we expect to see that door opening, and then we will see the protocol, the unrolling of the red carpet by South Africa, which is happening on a rather large scale in the last 48 or so hours, continuing until the Leaders' Summit actually gets underway.
Now, when you speak to Lasizwe of that theme of One Earth, indeed, if we look at South Africa's theme, that of solidarity, equality and sustainability, indeed, it still speaks to countries that are endorsing globalization, because many of the thought leaders have said globalization is not a choice. It is here and we need to respond to it. When it comes to climate change, it is here, we need to respond to it. So most certainly those that have or seek to push a message that is anti-globalization will probably find very little space, because a number of countries have endorsed this developmental agenda. And as you state there, that India is among those that have spoken of this oneness, and it seems all other countries on the Global South in particular have embraced that specific message that we need to move together as the world.
Yeah, in fact, let's take it a step further, Mfundo, as we watch that door and await for it to open. If you follow the themes that go beyond the mere focus on the global economy, and you focus on the ones that have to do with sustainable development and the attainment of development in regions that are underdeveloped, you can trace them all the way to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, the 17 SDGs. So there are linkages there. So this conversation is unavoidable. The conversations around debt sustainability for those countries that are indebted. You have a number of countries that now spend more on servicing debt than they spend on, programs such as education and health, for example. How do you address that? The financing for a just energy transition, as well as readiness, disaster readiness, disaster risk reduction and the likes. All of these are conversations that may seem to be quite local to each and every country, but if you think about it, they again emphasize that theme that says we are all but one globe facing all of these issues together, that overall impact on the sustainability of the global economy.
Indeed, Lasizwe. And honestly, when we speak about those SDGs, what we've seen over the years now is not only the G20 rising in stature insofar as it comes to the influence that it wields now as that specific forum for international economic cooperation, but really the elevation of the UN's role. We've seen it over the years, because just as you touch on the SDGs, we've seen them over the years now incorporated into the theme, or at least the priorities of the G20, that no longer, as when you were speaking to your guest, there no longer has it just been confined to discussing the issues of financial regulation here, but most certainly the developmental agenda, that we look at climate change and calling on the well-developed West to fund the South in this respect, that the developing nations must be funded when it comes to climate change, because most certainly the conversation has always been that they wouldn't have been the ones who contribute the most to the pollution that we're seeing now, but unfortunately hardest hit by climate change.
Yeah, so we're looking at that jet there, Mfundo. It's known as Air India One. It's a Boeing 777 jet that ferries the head of government in India, and it has touched down at Waterkloof Air Force Base. We'll keep an eye on that door as the diplomatic and protocols of the state start to roll out, as you see the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi coming out of Air India One that is now on the ground at Waterkloof Air Force Base. But while we watch that and keep that on screen,